What's up, guys? You know what, man? We are gonna be talking about some of the mistakes people make when layering hair and things to avoid. So stay tuned, guys. It is gonna be super rad. I'm not spitting today, so stay tuned. I got something in my throat, my throat right now. Anyways, guys, stay tuned. It is gonna be rad. Okay, guys, so when it comes down to layering hair, one of the things, well, I mean, there's so many different mistakes that people make when layering hair. Whether they're layering hair, if you're a hairdresser, you're doing it on fine hair, medium, coarse, curly, all different types. You know, and then it comes down to, you know, how you actually cut the hair. Do you cut it super blunt? Do you cut it with a lot of texture? Are you using a razor? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. So in today's video, we're gonna be kind of going in depth about really what is working and what is not working. So if you're having issues with layers, today's video is gonna be rad. So without further ado, let's get right into it. You guys like my yellow hat? Yeah, man, I'm like, you know, rocking a little G-star, whatever, you know. I didn't, you know, again, I just spit again right there. But you know what, man? I didn't really want to wash my hair today. I just didn't, you know? So it's like, it's gonna be a hat day, so let's do this. So first off, when it comes down to layering hair, the thing to consider, number one, is like, where is your length, right? So we've got length down here, and when you start to layer hair, you have to think about the one major thing layering does is layering hair removes weight. So the more you layer hair, okay, the shorter you go up through here, you're going to essentially make this down at the bottom look a lot less full. When you start to layer hair, people want, number one, volume. Number two, they want to remove weight. They want more movement. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why people start to layer hair. And so when you're consulting with somebody, it's like, keep in mind, the shorter you go in your layers, the more you're gonna be removing weight from that bottom area. But if you're gonna be bringing that length up, you know, then of course you can layer it as short as possible. You know, I mean, you could get it into a pixie, all that good stuff. We're gonna layer the hair pretty heavily. And I think I said that right, heavily, you know? So we're gonna layer the hair pretty heavily. And then if the length starts to look really sparse, we're gonna bring that length up as well. Well, let's start by layering. We're gonna take this section in half, just right through here. Because a lot of times when I start to layer hair, one of the things that I do is I usually cut my layers a little bit longer than my normal desired length, whatever that is, because I know then when it comes down to me, my aesthetic, when I start to cut hair, is I like to leave a little bit more room so I can start to remove a little bit of weight to soften up those layers. Now, if you go in, one of the main mistakes I always see with people when they start to layer hair is they'll layer it right to the point of their desired look and it'll start to be too heavy, okay? They'll layer it and then they start removing a lot more length to soften it up and the layers look way too short. Because again, when it comes down to consulting, this is gonna be a hot tip right here. You know, we can throw a little, you know, an animation, hot tip right there. But a hot tip is that when you guys start to layer hair, think about, you know, the end result. Or when you're talking, you're consulting with somebody, one of the things is that, you know, you wanna make sure if they're like, oh, I want my shortest layer to be right here. If you cut it right to that point, you don't leave a lot of room to kind of remove weight and soften that. It can essentially start to get shorter and shorter. And then they're gonna be pissed off and then they're just like, dude, I didn't want it this short. You know what I mean? So that's one of the mistakes I see with hairdressers that really just mess it up. And so keep that in mind. That is so crucial. Hot tip. It's kind of like, you know, we got the sign for hot chicken over here, hot chicken. We're not even talking about chicken, we're talking about hot tips, man. And then, so another really hot tip really quick, you're like, man, just cut some hair, man. Another really hot tip here is, are you gonna be cutting that line super blunt, or are you gonna be adding a lot of texture to it? So most likely, I usually end up adding like more texture to those ends because I just really like how that looks. And if I do that, we're gonna be cutting it. So when you go in to point cut, you always wanna cut out, right? You don't wanna go in and cut. You're gonna cut your finger like that. And so what you do is then you cut out, right? As you can see how I move out, just like that. And see how buttery that is? Woo, man, make sure you have some sharp scissors when you're doing that. But one of the things is that, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna cut in a regular line just like that. Now you can go in and you can cut that super blunt. That's all up to you. That's your aesthetic, guys. So when we do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rest of this hair right through here and take a little bit of this one right through here, just like that. Then I'm just gonna follow that line and you're gonna see, boom, as I cut out, just like that. Now you're gonna see those irregular lines, just like that. Point cutting up, okay? Take a little bit more hair back through here, just like so. Bringing that all the way up, okay? So keep in mind when you guys are layering hair and those things. Now, whether you want your line to be completely straight, I mean, you could have your line go all different directions depending on how you want your shape to look. Do you want your shape more triangular? It's a little bit longer in front, shorter in the back. Do you want your length a little bit more shag-like, a little bit shorter in the front, longer in the back? That's kind of what we're doing today. I'm gonna go ahead and finish cutting the rest of this. We're gonna slow this down for some nice, smooth, buttery B-roll. All right, guys, so the really cool thing that I really want you guys to grasp in today's video is that, again, it really comes down to when you are consulting, you got to think about, talk about, again, the more you layer your hair, you're going to be removing a lot more weight from that bottom area. And essentially that can get a little bit more sparse. Ways to avoid that from looking sparse is to go in and to create a solid line along the bottom. That'll give it a lot more structure. That's another mistake a lot of hairdressers make, is that when they do start to layer the hair, they don't go in and give a more structure at that bottom area. And I'm gonna go do that in just a few. So, if you guys are finding value in today's video, go ahead and like it. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. But honestly, guys, I just wanna share with you guys things that are just gonna make your hair days that much better. So we're gonna go ahead and dry this, and so we can really kind of start to look at that shape in general. Now, again, let's go ahead and dry it. Let's get that rocking. Let's do that now. All right, guys, so one of the things I really want you guys to pay attention to, right? And as we start to really look at this shape and look and see how it's starting to look, is that we've got, a lot of that layer happening in a very shaggish kind of way, right? Now, as you start to look at some of that length along the bottom, it starts to get a little bit kind of sparse. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring that length up just a little bit, just to kind of create a little bit more structure in there. Now, you can do this in a couple different ways. We can actually do this by cutting this completely like blunt across, or we can do this by point cutting into it just a little bit. Now that is really kind of up to you. We point cut really right through that top area. So keeping in mind is that I'm gonna go through and we keep that point cutting very, very similar. Now, when it comes down to point cutting hair, guys, you can point cut rather deep into the hair, you can point cut rather medium, or you can point cut really like shallow. The more shallow it is, the more closer it's gonna be to a blunt cut, because again, those lines are just really small. So keep that in mind as well when you start to think about layering your hair and or cutting that shape right? You know, depending on what you want your points of interest to be when you are doing that. So cool. What I'm going to do is, you know, just cut this line really, really quick. And I'm going to do kind of like a medium point cut just along that bottom area. And I usually hold it at 0 elevation, because again, I'm not looking to get any sort of graduation. I'm just looking to just kind of take off some of those ends. We can start to see now, as we layered the hair, the thing to keep in mind now is now that we brought up that length, we created more structure along that bottom. So again, the more extreme you go with your layers, the shorter you go with them, the more weight you're gonna remove off of the bottom. Let's go ahead and let's start to personalize this haircut to where we start to remove just a little bit of weight. Knowing that if this was on a real person, that hair that would kind of fall forward right through that area is gonna be a little bit heavy. So we're gonna go in and just remove a little bit of weight to kind of make this kind of come alive. It's already looking really amazing. And if the client, or if you guys are doing this on yourself and you guys want more strength in the layers, then you know, you don't have to go in and remove any sort of weight. But if you're dealing with somebody with anywhere between medium to thick, coarse textured hair, you know, you're going to want to remove a little bit more weight to kind of make it come alive a little bit more. If we're gonna do this, I always like to hold that section at that same degree I held it before. Now I'm gonna show you this. Actually, let's bring the camera over to this angle and you're gonna see how I bring it straight up to that area. I'm not bringing it back, I'm not bringing it really far forward, I'm bringing it right to where we cut that line before. Now, the thing is that we can go in and we can start to point cut into that. A little cool tip and trick, you know, you guys have probably seen this before, but if you actually go ahead and make a fist with your hand, you can spread out that section. Now keep in mind that you can go in and you can remove a little bit of weight and you can spread that open just a little bit more. Now again, keep in mind that you want to make sure that you are cutting as you go out. You do not want to cut as you're coming in. You're going to cut yourself, I guarantee it. Go in and you can spread that open, and then I can actually kind of get inside of there. And keeping in mind that I'm cutting this exactly parallel. Think about two skis. I'm not coming in at an angle. I'm actually trying to cut on the inside of it. So I'm just kind of removing a little bit of that weight on the inside there. Take another section right through here, which is going to be this kind of crown area. 9 times out of 10, most people want a lot more volume up in that crown area. I'll spread that open. I was gonna make a little inside joke. You spread that open, you know. All right, never mind. All right, inside joke. When I was younger and I wasn't married, everybody would be like, Jake's just being, anyways, we're not even gonna go there with that, right? But the cool thing is that now that you kind of remove a little bit of weight, you're softening up those points of interest to where the layers start to begin and then the layers start to end. The whole point of point cutting, guys, is to just soften up that line. You can create a really blunt line, you can do shallow point cut, whatever you want. This is really up to you guys. Again, it's not like one size fits all. Basically, guys, we are like fingerprints. No one of us is alike. So again, make it work for your texture, make it work for the client's hair that you're working on. Another really cool way to go about that is to use a texturizing scissor instead of a blunt scissor. We can go about that in another video. But guys, I am really digging what we have going on here. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this off. All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And honestly, it has been just a pleasure sharing with you guys value. And so if you guys found value in today's video, again, like it, comment, share, all that good stuff. Guys, All the links that I use of everything is gonna be below. There's also gonna be a free gift below. Check that out if you have not downloaded that. I will see you guys in next week's video.